Drawing cylinders is hard. Oh, you're waiting for me to say that it's not actually hard. Well, this time I'm not going to say that because drawing cylinders is actually hard. It's probably the most difficult thing to draw in general, at least for me. And it's mainly because it includes drawing two complicated things: ellipses, that's basically circles in perspective, that are really hard to freehand. And secondly, matching that perspective so that it makes sense. So today, we're gonna first see how to draw ellipses so that they make sense, how to not practice drawing ellipses in perspective, because I know that a lot of courses and tutorials propose that, but it's just plain wrong. And then how to actually go about practicing drawing cylinders from multiple angles so that you understand how useful they are and how to actually implement them later in your drawing so that you can convey space properly. So first, let's talk about what makes up a cylinder first. So a cylinder in its most basic form is basically a circular section that is being extruded. Let's pretend there is a pasta machine here, and you know why I'm making this kind of example, right? Mamma mia. So let's pretend there is some sort of thing here and it's extruding through a circular hole, right? If you take a cylinder in 3D space, it's basically a circle that's like long. So it extrudes here and it pushes out the pasta. Let's stay with the pasta idea. It pushes out some sort of snake, right, with a circular section. So this thing here, even if it doesn't look like a circle, is a circle, okay? This thing, or this and this, which you cannot usually see, you can only see the rim, these are actual circles. And this is gonna give us a clue on how to draw them later. So we have two components here. We have the circle, so we have circle, and then we have the shaft, I guess we can call it shaft. Which has a circular section, but these two lines need to follow perspective as well in a way that makes sense for the ellipse to feel like it's actually sitting in that space. And that's why it's so hard. So now that we know that a circle, when it's moved around in 3D space, looks like an ellipse, you can try to freehand some. And immediately you're going to notice that whenever you do that, you inevitably end up with something that's very uneven. A proper ellipse, if you want to be extremely precise, would have to be foldable. So when you draw something like this is not, see, I'm not even, super precise doing it. You want to ghost it and to do something like that. But ideally, when you freehand an actual ellipse, you want to be able to fold it this way, and then again you fold it this way, so that you end up with basically a shape that's like this, right? And the form or the shape you end up with has no spillover on any side, right? That would be a perfect ellipse. This is really hard to freehand. There are actually some warm-ups that I'm going to link on screen right now. It's a warm-up video that you can watch, and that includes warm-ups for ellipses as well. But that's not all, right? Because even if you know how to draw an ellipse, you don't really know how to draw a cylinder yet, because if I do something like this, let's draw an actual cleaner one. Given that it's not super precise, that doesn't really matter that much. So if I do something like this, this is not a cylinder, because first, these two ellipses probably don't match, and they need to match. We'll see how and why later. The sides of the shaft also do not match. So how do we go about practicing that? What exercise do we use and what exercise do we not use? Let's start with the one we did not have to use, because I've seen it everywhere. So the main concept to understand here is that a circle is always inscribed in a square. This is a perfect square, 1, 1, 1, 1. And the circle is always inscribed. So a lot of the exercises you see out there skew the square in perspective, divide it, because the circle touches the square here in the middle, of the sides, divide it this way, and say, okay, well, let's draw a circle here and try to, do that very slowly, maybe. Something like that. And this is not going to work. This kind of exercise is completely useless because you don't really know how you have to orient the ellipse, because the ellipse has an orientation, like it can be like this, it can be like this, or it can be like this. And when you have something like a bounding square, you don't really know exactly, like if you want to do it like this, even if it has to touch here and here and here and here, you don't know exactly how that needs to go, right? You have no idea how to precisely figure that out. And I struggled with this for a long time until I read Scott Robertson's How to Draw. In that book, it's mentioned that when you draw an ellipse, the short axis, which is the distance, the shortest distance between the sides here, this would be the long one, this always needs to be aligned with the perspective of the system. That's how you get a proper ellipse. So we're getting close to how do we actually train that? Because now we know that we have to draw an ellipse. We know that we have to orient it so that this short axis goes towards a vanishing point. But how do we figure out the rest? Like if I draw a square around it, like how do I figure this out? How do we even know how wide it needs to be, or what convergence the sides have? We really don't know how to figure that out unless we know how to draw a box. We're going to use the box rotation matrix that I talk about in that video to inform our cylinder rotations. Given that we need our perspective system in order to be able to draw a proper ellipse and then a cylinder, let's try to use some of these boxes. If you don't have the matrix yet, I highly recommend you go back, watch that video, then come back when you do have the matrix. In any case, there's going to be a sample attached to this video. And then you continue the exercise from this point, because it's really important to understand how to draw a box and how to set up the coordinate system that the box represents in order to be able to draw anything else. This is going to be later valid for everything. It's not just for cylinders. Cylinders are one thing you can do with the box, but you can technically inscribe everything inside a box. And we're probably going to see this in another video. Actually, let me know down in the comments if you want to see a video about that. But let's go back to our theory. So we said that a circle, so an ellipse, is always inscribed in a square surface. Now we know that our boxes here are cubes, so they're 100% square. Some of these are a little off. I actually tried correcting them. I did use a 3D model as a base, so these should be fairly accurate. They're not 100% accurate, but that doesn't matter because we can eyeball and edit things as we go. So let's take the 45 as an example. This is 45. We could technically use the big face, but because I want to make the cylinder longer as if it's some kind of limb, I'm going to divide it. So I'm going to divide the face into 4 smaller squares. This, I think it could be maybe a little too narrow in this direction. Doesn't matter that much. So I divide it. All of these are squares. I divide the back face too. And then I could find the middle points. Now, because I already have the box, the other side of the box going in this direction, I do have my perspective. I do have my vanishing points, which are going in this direction and going in this direction. So what I have to do is simply align. I can do draw one here just to show you. I can simply align my ellipse so that the short axis goes in the same direction of the other sides, and you can figure it out, something like that. So okay, do something like this, and ideally it should touch all these. It's not mandatory, it doesn't have to be a hard measurement, but this would be a proper ellipse that goes, let me do it this way first, that goes into the distance. Now we can simply stretch these. Again, staying aligned. We our vanishing lines here. And then on the other side, we do the same thing. So we do something like that. You will notice that the ellipse on the back, this guy here, is wider than this, or a little bit. In this case, it's not really much because it's 45. It's actually probably very similar. But if we take anything else, let's take this, for example, you will already notice, just given the side of the box, that this side is much narrower than this. This is exactly what happens in perspective. So if you draw a cylinder here, you can also draw it without guidelines, by the way. So this one will have to be a little bit wider. If you're not used to it, you probably want to use the guidelines at the very beginning. Otherwise, they will look wonky, kind of like this one. But over time, you will get used to it. And the beautiful thing of using this, this is a little shorter. The beautiful thing of using this system is that once you have drawn all these ellipses in all these different directions, you basically have a cheat sheet that you can reuse. So you will technically not have to do it every single time that you draw. You can just have a look at like, okay, I want to rotate my arm in this direction. Like for example, I have my torso here. So if I want to so I know that, you know, the actual arm maybe goes down like that. If I want to rotate it up, maybe I already know a cylinder that goes in that direction in my matrix, and I can just take it and do that. This way, not only you are able to rotate the cylinder or a cylinder, but you're also, you gotta pay attention all the time, so talking while doing it, not great. You're also maintaining the proportions of the cylinder. And this is true for everything that you're going to inscribe into a box, because the box is 1 to 1, so 1, 1, 1, 1 on any direction. So anything that you inscribe, you will be able to maintain proportions of. All right, that's pretty much it. So as a general rule, using the matrix and inscribing cylinders in here, you can eyeball at some point. See, as long as you maintain those orientations, and it's way harder without, obviously without guidelines. It's probably a little weird. Let's do something like that maybe. I'm leaving this in because I want you to understand that it's always gonna be hard, especially if you do it digitally. Again, it's way more difficult to do it digitally. So you can do maybe, let's take this maybe and draw it here. In the end, you'll figure out the degree, how wide the ellipse needs to be by sheer practice. So it's probably going to be something like this. One thing to keep in mind, I guess, or to think about is if you inscribe it in a box, does it look like this ellipse is a hole punched into this surface? If it does, then you did a good job. If it doesn't, then you didn't. So it does have to be part of the box or the surface. And once you know that, once you know how to figure out the other side, right, which is basically this, you can use that exercise I said you don't have to do. Well, if you know how to calculate or how to eyeball the other side, the other perspective, or the other vanishing lines, you can 100% do it. So something like that. And this is going to be a correct-ish. Obviously, it's still eyeballed, correct-ish ellipse. So you can still practice that if you know how to do it. And then you can go ahead and practice this on real subjects like figures and whatnot. All right, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. But if you want to learn more about implementing box rotations, I have a video here that's exactly about that. All right, thanks for watching and take care.